Welcome to the journey of exposing the ultimate hoax from the world of science itself. Today, we will delve into the world of paleontology, where, before computers, AI or Google
身子一
images,
半是井的薄
scientists were
片
able
龙
to
也
draw
叫伊拉
monsters
斯
that
莫
even
龙，
Hollywood
生
had
活
to
在
bow down to
8500
because of
万
their
至
creativity.
6500万年
Have，you ever imagined
主
a
要分布
15
在
meter
北
long
美
sea
洲海
monster
域，
with a neck
体
as
长
long as
长
a
约
train,
13
whose
至
head was
15米，
attached to its
脖子
tail?
占约
No
7米，
kidding. That is the
重约
story
2
of
至7吨，
Elasmosaurus,
头部
the
较小，
victim of one of the most
四肢
famous
4个鳍状
disassembly
肢用
incidents
于
in the
游泳，
history of science.
尾巴细长，
Let's go back in
生
time
活
to
食性以肉
1868.
食、鱼类为主
Paleontologist Edward，
繁殖在
Drinker，
沙
one
滩。
of the big names in American research, had just received an amazing fossil skeleton from Kansas. It was a sea creature with a neck longer than a limousine. And he was eager to announce this discovery to the world. The problem was, he was in a hurry. Very much so. Instead of patiently studying each bone, Cope decided, just put it together. Like Lego. And so, in what we would now call a scientific speedrun, he attached the head of Elasmosaurus to the tail, and the tail to where the neck should have been. So why the mistake? Simple, the neck of Elasmosaurus had 72 cervical vertebrae, 4 times that of a modern giraffe. Cope thought, no way. How could a neck that long survive? That long thing must be the tail. What do you think? A short-necked, long-tailed monster with a head that hung back, rather like a snake with legs that walked backwards? And then came the second character, Othniel Charles Marsh, Cope's arch-rival. If this were a comic book, they would have had their own villain theme music. Marsh flipped through Cope's description, slapped the table, and pointed out, the head is in the wrong place. So instead of thanking him, Cope got angry, tried to recall all the published research prints, a desperate move to erase the traces of the crime. But it failed. The mistake not only made him the subject of ridicule in the academic world, but also fired the gun that would last for decades, called the Bone Wars, where the two scientists Cope and Marsh competed to dig, smash, hide, and even destroy each other's fossils to claim credit for the discovery. Do you think science is dry? In the 19th century, it was as dramatic as a Netflix series. Suppose you were a young scientist, had just published a shocking discovery, then realized you had put the head of a creature in the place of the tail. Would you quietly correct the mistake and apologize? Burn the evidence and pretend, never heard of Elasmosaurus? Call it a new perspective and tell people to think differently. Leave a comment because I'd love to know. If YouTube existed in 1869, would the video, I stuck a dinosaur's head on the wrong tail, and this is what happened, have gone viral? Cope's mistake was more than just a personal stumble. It showed that science is a process of trial and error, correction, error, then getting it right. Elasmosaurus is more than just an ancient creature with the wrong head. It's a symbol of the humility required in research. Today, we have 3D models, genetic analysis, AI to reconstruct body shapes, but can we be 100% sure that the creatures we draw today won't be considered a laughingstock 100 years from now? And that was the ultimate, head-to-tail, of Elasmosaurus. But don't laugh at Cope yet, he's just the first, of many, to make prehistoric creatures look like they came straight out of Picasso's Sleepless Night's Dream. Do you know Iguanodon? One of the first dinosaurs to be named. It sounds like a gentle creature, monitor tooth. But 19th century science turned this herbivorous creature into a prehistoric rhinoceros with a horn on its nose. The story began when Gideon Mantle, a British doctor and naturalist, discovered fossilized teeth in 1822. From there, he described a giant creature with monitor-like teeth, walking like a kangaroo and especially, a sharp horn on its nose. But the so-called horn was actually a thumb. Yes, it was a hard, sharp finger, which could be used for self-defense or digging. Just because they had never seen a dinosaur's hand, scientists mistakenly attached the thumb to the face. A very bull-headed mistake. It wasn't until the late 19th century, when a series of intact Iguanodon skeletons were discovered in Belgium, that it became clear, Iguanodon didn't stand erect like a Victorian supermodel. Nor did it have horns on its forehead. In fact, it walked on all fours and had a very distinctive thumb, but in the right place. This mistake reminds us that science isn't always right from the start. It's a journey of assembling the pieces with both curiosity and humility. And sometimes, you get it wrong, very wrong. So the thumb is back in place, and the horn is, wrong. But if you think that's weird, just wait for the next creature, a creature that was completely upside down for decades. Have you ever seen a creature so bizarre that you couldn't tell the head, tail, legs, butt apart? Hello Hallucigenia, a small prehistoric creature that is enough to make the entire scientific community turn around. Hallucigenia was discovered in 1977 from fossils from the Cambrian period. It was about 3 centimeters long, with one side having a row of razor-sharp spikes, the other side having soft, squishy tentacles. Paleontologist Simon Conway Morris, the first person to describe this creature, built it in the direction of spikes for legs, tentacles for arms, and no face at all. Because it was so strange, he named it Hallucigenia, meaning illusion. Imagine a worm walking on sharp spikes, mouth raised to the sky, looking like the product of a dream after eating hot pot at night. It wasn't until 1991 that researchers realized that what Morris called legs were actually spines, and that the soft tentacles were the real ones. That is, the original model was completely flipped. And not only that, the head and mouth that Morris had assumed were also misplaced. Hallucigenia turned out to be a ground-dwelling creature, not an aerial circus monster. The story instantly became one of the most memorable turnarounds in paleontology. Not just because it was weird, but because it showed that when data is scarce, imagination will step in, and sometimes, we try to rationalize completely irrational things, just to have a model that seems right. So Hallucigenia, from a weird dream, has become a symbol of adorable confusion in science. But don't stop there, the next character is even stranger. When a US president once believed elephants were cold-blooded killers. Looking at an elephant, do you think it is a cold-blooded killer? Probably not, but in the 18th century, President Thomas Jefferson was convinced that ancient elephants were carnivores, and may even still be living somewhere in the American forests. It sounds like science fiction, but that is the true story of Mastodon, an ancient relative of elephants and also the victim of a big misunderstanding in the history of science. In 1739, people excavated fossils in the Ohio Valley, curved tusks, large skulls and especially molars with many sharp edges. Immediately, scholars at that time concluded, teeth like these are for tearing flesh. So Mastodon was considered a carnivorous elephant, a ferocious, American beast. Far from the gentle elephants in Africa. Jefferson, a leader who loved science, could not stand Europeans criticizing American animals as weak. In response, he used the mastodon as living proof that America had creatures as big, strong, and carnivorous as lions. When the Lewis and Clark expedition set out, Jefferson even instructed, if you see a mastodon, be sure to capture it alive. It's true, the US president once thought that ancient elephants still roamed the forest like mysterious bosses. Today, we know that the mastodon was a gentle herbivore. Its teeth, though large, were designed to crush branches, not to bite antelope necks. Mistakes are common. The important thing is knowing how to correct mistakes when you understand more. And so the mastodon was given back its honor as a plant. But don't breathe easy yet. The next creature was even weirder, long arms like an alien, but with a duck's beak. Imagine you only see 2 arms over 2 meters long, with sharp curved claws, no head, no body. What would you think? An ancient assassin? A bloodthirsty predator? Welcome to Dinosaurus, meaning terrible hand. For nearly 50 years, scientists only had those hands, and the imagination went a little too far. In 1965, in the Gobi Desert, Soviet scientists found 2 giant forelimbs with formidable claws. No head, no body, no legs, and so they built an image, an extremely dangerous carnivorous dinosaur. Possibly a relative of T-Rex. The name, Dinosaurus mirificus, strange hand, made it even more legendary. In 2014, paleontologists discovered 2 nearly complete Dinosaurus skeletons. And it turned out, it was a duck-billed dinosaur. Big-bellied, omnivorous, slow-moving, gentle and quite silly. It was about 11 meters long, weighed 6 tons, had a flat beak like a duck, no teeth, a humpback, and a big belly because it ate grass and fish. Its arms were long but mainly for self-defense or pulling trees, not for tearing flesh. From 2 arms, people built a whole monster. But Dinosaurus proves that too much imagination can easily lead to confusion. It was not a killer, but a fat-bellied friend who ate seaweed. A gesture, a saying, or a detail. Did it make you misunderstand the whole story? Dinosaurus reminds us that sometimes something big, sharp, and scary is not necessarily a threat. It could just be a prehistoric duck with a slightly too long arm. From terrible hands to big-bellied ducks, Dinosaurus has made the scientific community laugh. But you haven't seen it yet. Next up is a long-necked dinosaur that was erased from history because it was thought to be a Fake. You know Brontosaurus, the gentle long-necked dinosaur that often appears in cartoons. Right? But did you know that, in the scientific community, it didn't exist for 100 years? Yes, Brontosaurus was once removed from the official dinosaur list because people thought it was a copy of another species. In the late 19th century, two American paleontologists, Marsh and Cope, were in the Bone Wars, a fierce race to discover dinosaurs. In 1879, Marsh discovered a long-necked skeleton and named it Brontosaurus excelsus, thunder lizard. But 2 years earlier, he also described a nearly identical species called Apatosaurus. Later, researchers concluded Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus are one, and because Apatosaurus was named first, Brontosaurus was erased. Since 1903, the name Brontosaurus has been considered invalid, but in the public eye, it is still alive and well thanks to cartoons and children's books. In 2015, Emmanuel Chop's team analyzed hundreds of skeletal features from long-necked species. Conclusion: Brontosaurus is different enough to be considered a separate species. So after more than 100 years, Brontosaurus has been officially rehabilitated, no longer a copy of Apatosaurus. Brontosaurus shows that science is not an immutable truth. It changes as new data and tools become available. Making mistakes and then correcting them, that is not the weakness of science. But the reason why it is trustworthy. How many ideas, characters, and inventions have been rejected because they were misunderstood? How many things that were thought to be fake turned out to be real when we look at them with different eyes? Brontosaurus is more than just a dinosaur. It's a symbol that being forgotten doesn't mean being worthless. Have you heard of Archaeopteryx? The tiny, winged, feathered bird, but also had teeth, a bony tail and claws on its wings? Bird, dinosaur, or a bonus of both? Welcome to the story of a creature that has been debating scientists for over a century, not because it's so special, but because it's so timely. Just 2 years after Darwin published On the Origin of Species, Archaeopteryx was discovered in Germany, a fossil with feathers, teeth, a long tail and wings. It instantly became a symbol of living proof of evolution, the link between dinosaurs and birds. Darwin's supporters rejoiced, skeptics protested, it's just a strange bird. And the debate began. Archaeopteryx was as small as a crow, had teeth, 3 claws on its wings, a long tail like a dinosaur, but had feathers like a modern bird. It can fly, but poorly. It can climb trees, but it has not really mastered the sky. So what is it? Some say it is an ancestral bird. Others say, no, it is just a feathered dinosaur. And so the argument continues. As more feathered dinosaurs were discovered, some of which flew better than Archaeopteryx, a new hypothesis emerged. Maybe Archaeopteryx is not an ancestor, but an extinct offshoot. So the one-time ancestral bird turned out to be just a distant cousin of modern birds. Archaeopteryx reminds us, evolution is not simple. It is full of forks, trials and missteps. Not everyone who is famous will go far. Sometimes, it is just coming along at the right time. Something you believe is fundamental, but later discover, is just a side branch? How many icons do we honor, but need to revisit with a new perspective? From ancestral bird to sub-branch, Archaeopteryx is more than a fossil. It is a reminder that there is no room for haste in science. 18-meter-long shark, weighing 50 tons, teeth as big as a hand. A bite that can crush a car? Not a movie. Megalodon, the ruler of the ocean for millions of years. Then one day, it disappeared. No message, no complete fossil, and so the theory exploded. It lives at the bottom of the Mariana Islands. The government hid it. And the science? There is another story, less exciting but more data-rich. Megalodon was the largest shark ever recorded. It hunted whales, seals and almost anything swimming within reach. Teeth were 18 centimeters long. Hundreds of them replaced continuously. Tooth fossils were found everywhere, North America, Europe, South Africa, showing a global range. About 3.6 million years ago, Megalodon disappeared from the fossil record. Why? Climate change, colder oceans. Smaller sharks appeared, like the great white, faster and more mobile. Prey changed, whales evolved. Living in groups, Megalodon, too big, too picky, no longer suitable for the new ecosystem. Although scientists denied it, people still believe. No body, no extinction. From fake clips to blockbusters, Megalodon became a legendary symbol. But no new fossils, no DNA samples, no whales bitten in half. Hollywood is fun, but science remains silent. Megalodon was once king. But when
随后呢，
conditions
它就
change,
障碍物的时候呢，
flexibility
先有
is
一只海
survival.
豚就请
Lesson:
求
big
先
is
去
not
前面
necessarily
探路。
strong.
侦查了
Adaptation
一
is
番
the
回
real
来之后
weapon.
呢，就开始跟
Are
其他的海
cumbersome
豚汇
habits
报
and
情
thoughts
况。
slowing you down?
随后呢，大家
Who
还展
knows?
开了激
To
烈的讨
survive,
论。
you don't
然
need
后
to
就这样
become a
讨论
giant.
持续
You
了
need
半
to
个
learn
小时
to
之后，
swim more
然后海豚
flexibly.
群就形成了统一的
From
意
fossil
见。
legend
大
to
家一
movie
致认为这
star,
个障碍物当中
Megalodon
没什么危险，
exemplifies
于
an
是就穿
evolutionary
行而
truth:
过，
those who adapt
这样
quickly
也成
survive.
不能算
From
作
the
是语。
giant megalodon
因为
to
你
the
看到
tiny flores man, from the terrible hand to the long-necked duck, you and I have just gone through a strange journey of evolution, where everything we thought was certain can always be overturned. There are creatures that once dominated, then disappeared without a trace. There are species that were once considered a joke, then were rehabilitated. And there are fossils that have caused the entire scientific community to argue for hundreds of years. We often imagine history as a ladder, from fish right-pointing arrow reptiles, right-pointing arrow dinosaurs, right-pointing arrow humans. But in reality, it is more like a dense bush, full of dead ends and failed branches. Each fossil is not just a bone, but a silent record of the past, showing those who do not adapt, do not survive. What we once thought was the norm, scaly dinosaurs, invincible sharks, stately bird nests, is now rounder, hairier, and even a little funny. But it's the humor in evolution that makes it endearing and telling. If someone were to dig up your fossils in the future, what would they find? A flexible, ever-evolving creature? Or an intelligent species that self-extincted out of stubbornness? Thank you for joining us on this journey through time, from the Cretaceous to the present. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the quirky mysteries that science is still peeling back layer by layer. Because as Darwin once said, it is not the strongest or the most intelligent species that survives, but the one that adapts best. See you in the next video, where the past is still whispering to the present. If you know how to listen,